How you doing, guys, and welcome. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about intuitive clarity and the importance of intuitive clarity and what the hell is intuitive clarity. I'm coming to you, by the way, from the west coast of Ireland. I'm staying in a place called Doonbeg Lodge, which is very, very beautiful, very inspirational, a beautiful big beach outside where I actually got engaged. So I felt like taking out the camera and actually, doing a short video and just seeing where it goes. Again, no notes and stuff like that. Just to kind of have a chat and just see what happens. But obviously, there's a purpose to this. I mean, I don't just pull out the camera to kind of create some, video footage for a vlog or for my website. I mean, there's a meaning behind this always. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single video will resonate with you, of course. But I wanted to talk about intuitive clarity and what the difference between clarity and intuitive clarity is. And intuitive clarity is a kind of a term that I've been kind of sitting with for a while. In essence, it's clarity that comes from within. It's more intuitively based as opposed to intellectually, manifested, if you like. And the difference is it's not like you're trying to convince yourself. You don't need to be validated. You don't need to put it by somebody. It's almost like that decision or that clarity that you just know you have to do. You just know it's right. You just intuitively feel it as opposed to think. You don't need to rationalize it. You don't need to sit down and do pros and cons. It's just something you feel. And intuition, in essence, I think is that internal compass that we all have. And we have it in abundance. But we've tended to, in some cases, turn it off, shy away from it, stop listening to it, not begin to listen to it for various reasons, which I won't get into today. And, somebody once said, a client of mine, Oliver from Toronto, said, I'm sorry I listened to my gut. Said no one ever. I'm sorry I listened to my gut. Said no one ever. And I think that's very, very true. I think if you look at your own life, you reflect upon your own life and the business life you have and your personal life and in the relationships around you, I think there are times where you've probably ignored your gut, ignored your initial kind of like feeling. And it's come back to kind of haunt you at some shape or form. Maybe you're in a situation right now where it's not serving you and you keep choosing to not listen to that whisper because it's whispering away. You can't eradicate your intuition. Like people often think you're either born with intuition or you're not. You can't eradicate intuition. It's always there. It's just a matter of how do you get there. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I could speak about intuition for a very long time, and I probably will take some real space and create a series of videos and break it down kind of a little bit more step by step for people. But in essence, I just want to position something, and that is what really inhibits us from getting in touch with and allowing our intuition, not discovering intuition externally. It's not out there in a book or anything else. It's within you. But what prevents us from actually kind of allowing that intuition to kind of just grow and to kind of show up within us? Well, there's a number of obvious things like busyness, things like always being kind of like connected, whether it's, in your head connected, like constantly living in your head. If you're living in your head, you ain't going to be intuitive, period. Intuition doesn't exist up here. It's more of a kind of a heart, soul place, which is down here in your gut. Being online, being on Facebook, Twitter, always online, watching TV, technology, I believe are some of the greatest inhibitors to intuition. It's very, very difficult to be intuitive when you're processing images and audios and so on and so forth up here. But there are another area of inhibitors that lie deeper than the more obvious ones. And they're the ones that people tend not to necessarily want to talk about, not necessarily admit, or most cases aren't even remotely in touch with them. And they're things like anger, there are things like regret, there are things like shame, there are things like expectations, there are things like judgment. And I'm talking about judgment upon ourselves. And how I likened it very recently, I did a retreat in Ireland, as I do every year, and there was this day where we were coming up to all these beautiful walls all over this part of Ireland. And they're, in some cases, thousands of years old. And these dry walls are being built by hand, but they're dry walls, like they're just stone. There's no concrete. There's nothing meshing them together. There's no bonding, if you like, in between the stones or the rocks. And they're often, the size of my two hands together, or maybe by two, if you like. And you have all these cows and sheep and so on and so forth. But I came up and there was a field of cows, and I looked at them, and they're all kind of entrapped by these perimeter walls, which are all these dry walls. And then there's a gate in the middle. And I just looked at them and I just went, wow, the power of those cows, the strength of those cows, all they would have to come up to do, literally up to those walls, not kick them, not run into them. All they'd have to do is lean into them, and those walls would probably give way, and the cow could literally step over the rocks and the stones and walk out. But to me, you can almost bring that back to our own lives, is that I think sometimes we create these perimeters around our own lives. We entrap ourselves with our fears and all the different things and all the things that we haven't processed, the things that we're not aware of. And all we have to do is come up and lean into those conversations. And each of those rocks represents something that's an inhibitor to intuition, like anger, regret, shame, judgment, all of these things that I talked about. And often we won't do it because we believe they're insurmountable. We believe they're like stuck together. That wall is basically immovable. Like, it's just, you cannot move that wall. It's too significant. It's there for a reason, etc., etc. And yet we wait for someone to open the gate to almost say and give us permission to walk through. And to hell with that. To me, I believe the work that I do is about personal leadership. It's about taking control of your own life and leading your own life, like taking control of this life that you have and not allowing it to, and there's a balance between allowing it to flow, that's not what I'm talking about, but allowing other people to dictate, allowing people's validation and permission to really kind of control the tone of your life. I just think it's unnecessary. So I would strongly encourage you. In fact, I did a couple of interviews yesterday via Skype and online, and I did a call on intuition with a fairly well-known speaker and writer and so on and so forth. And I think he's given me permission, and we actually recorded that call. It was an hour call on intuition, and he's given me permission. So just look out for that. We most likely will post that. Again, it's not going to be, opting in and downloading and give us in your email. We'll just basically provide that probably in the vlog here as well. So, keep an eye out for that as well. So just all I'm encouraging you to do is to consider that if intuition is something that intrigues you, interests you, and you feel that you have access to it, but there's a reason that, and you're also mixing up sometimes. People say, no, my gut is telling me this. It's often not your gut. It's your head. It's your head is telling you. And your head is speaking. Your head often controls you like you would not believe. So there's getting in touch with the difference between the two, and there's understanding that there's inhibitors that are blocking intuition within you that you are not even aware of. Not even aware of at all. And I would encourage you to kind of sit down with a pen and paper and look at anger, and look at regret, and look at shame, and look at the judgment you have in yourself, and really be open to, are these things that you share, that society feels that there's not really a place for those conversations, that really they're not very positive conversations, that really they're kind of negative emotions in many cases? Or can you kind of get rid of that and say, okay, to hell what people think, to hell what I've traditionally thought. Where do they show up in my life? Because they show up in your life. It's not like you're not angry. Everyone's angry. It's just an emotion. It's just that I'm just using anger as one example because it is one of the biggest inhibitors, I believe, to growth, flow, happiness, contentment, and ultimately tapping into intuition and intuitive clarity, I should say. Intuitive clarity. In other words, when you get intuitively in touch with intuition, what you need to do, the next step, the decisions, they just start to flow. But anger has been misunderstood in society. It's like picking up a chair and throwing it across the room. That's what we think anger is. It's not. That's a representation, a physical manifestation of anger. Anger is something we all carry, but often we're unaware of it. So just ask those questions, sit with those words, sit with those concepts, sit with those feelings, those emotions, and ask yourself. And if you say, no, I'm not angry, no, I have no shame, no, I have no regret, just call bullshit on yourself. And again, I would strongly recommend, get someone to do this with you, but not someone who's connected to the outcome, not somebody you're emotionally involved with or family or whatever. Try and get someone who's disconnected. But even just do it yourself and just really start to see if some of those things are getting in the way of actually blocking intuition. Because I can tell you one thing, intuition is one of the greatest assets we have as humans. If we're not intuitive, you can have all the time in the world, but what you're going to do is ultimately take pieces of everybody else's lives, everybody else's goals, everybody else's aspirations, thinking it's the clarity you want because you're thinking it because it's in your head. And you're missing this beautiful opportunity to tap into intuition, which provides intuitive clarity. And intuitive clarity creates authenticity because it's the clarity that you and you only want, and it's in essence your truth. Sorry for the long-winded message. It's an important message. I really believe it is. Please share it if you see any value in this message, because I think this is a conversation that really needs to start happening more in life. Thank you.